What's going on, everybody? It's EricRayweather back here, and in today's video I'm going to be going over the top 5 tips you need to know to master the run game in Madden. Now, some of these are going to be more basic tips, some of these are going to be just little things that a lot of people don't know, and they wonder why, sometimes running the ball is a little bit harder for them, and it's because you're not always following the best practices, at least in terms of how Madden works. So that's what we're going to cover in today's video. If you are new to the channel and you want to stay updated on the latest Madden tips and news all year long, make sure to subscribe and also make sure to hit the bell icon so that you join the notification squad and never miss any of the uploads. So let's get started. Number 1 is a very simple thing. This one's probably more for the beginner to intermediate players that don't really know better. You always want to run where you have the numbers advantage, and the game actually helps assist you with this. When you press down the right trigger, it'll bring up the box count and it'll show you which side you have the numbers advantage to. One side will be green, the other side will be red. In some scenarios the entire thing will be red, just meaning that you don't really have a number advantage to each side, but typically you will have an advantage to one side or the other. Now, you still want to be able to count this yourself, because if you are playing on harder difficulties like all Madden, I believe that this does not show up. So you always want to make sure you're counting your linemen, also take into account like your tight end that's on the side that you're running to, the fullback that's in the backfield if you have a fullback. Those are all your guys that you're going to count as your blockers. So if you're running to the right, you want to kind of look from the center on over to the right. How many bodies do you have versus how many bodies does the defense have right there? And the same thing when you're running to the left. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't have success running the ball where you don't have a numbers advantage. It can still be okay at times because it is a video game and certain runs just work good kind of no matter what, like stretch plays. Sometimes you could run those to the side where you don't have as much of an advantage and they're still, good runs, but you typically do want to run to the side where you have the numbers advantage. You want to run, whether it's a dive, whether it's an outside run, whether it's like an off tackle run, you want to make sure that you have at least as many blockers as they have defenders, because at that point you just need your blocks to hold up and you should get solid yards. But if they have an extra defender than you have a blocker, then there's a very good chance that there's going to be a free defender to come in and hit you before you could get many yards. So always make sure that you're using the numbers advantage, and you can create a numbers advantage if you don't have one by motioning a wide receiver over or a tight end over from like an opposite side of the field. You can motion him over to the side where the run is going and then snap the ball, and then in that case you've added another blocker for yourself. Number 2 is kind of a more advanced tip. This is something that players with good stick work are good at doing, but it's something a lot of people don't understand about the run game. So when you're running the ball, you're using the left joystick. What you need to do when you're using that left joystick, what your goal should be when running the ball, is you don't ever want that joystick to go all the way to one side or the other. When you're using your joystick, if you go all the way to the right or all the way left or all the way up, all the way down, whichever direction, at some point you go all the way and it kind of hits the edge and it makes that click sound. You don't ever want that to happen when you're running the ball. Now, there might be certain situations where you have to just go all the way to one side because you're trying to just outrun somebody, but typically, especially when you're running between the tackles, trying to hit those running lanes, you're running a dive up the middle or something like that, you should never want your joystick to go all the way to either side. You should want that thing to completely just be on a swivel at all times, just moving fluidly back and forth and just navigating through the holes and through the blockers, because if you're going too far one way or the other, that means you're planting your foot in the ground a lot harder. That means you're slowing yourself down in some instances. But if you can always keep it fluid and never have it touch any of the sides, you're going to be moving very, very slippery, and just like you're going to finesse your way through all the holes. You should realistically be able to run the ball with just your left hand, because the only thing you need your right hand for when running the ball is to use the turbo or acceleration boost, which is the RT or R2 button, but you only want to hold that when you actually hit daylight. You don't want to hold that at the beginning of the play, which is going to be the next tip I get into in a second. But you want to always be making sure that if you could just run the ball with just your left hand, then you're actually getting pretty good at running the ball. So what you should do if you're not good at this is go in practice mode, even if you have to sit there for an hour and just run halfback dives and just practice just running with just your left hand on the controller. Just get good at maneuvering through the holes and the running lanes and not going too far one way or the other. The more you do this, the more it just becomes muscle memory, and then once you're in game, you'll notice just how much better your run game is because of this, because you're not overcompensating one way or the other. You're actually hitting the holes perfectly every single time, and you're maneuvering and avoiding defenders. Now, the number 3 tip is something we just talked about briefly, and that is the turbo button. So again, when you're behind the line of scrimmage, this is one of the biggest things with running the ball in Madden that, you know, more people are starting to figure this out, you know, either whether it be because of my channel or other channels, we've kind of put that information out there. But a lot of people don't know that you're not really supposed to hold the turbo button until you hit daylight, especially behind the line of scrimmage. A lot of people that have trouble running the ball, and they're saying, like, I can't get any blocking, like the defense just block sheds, like there's never any holes to run through. That's more than likely because you are holding down the turbo button the second you get the ball, and that makes the defender's block shed quicker in Madden. And I believe I talked to a developer about this, you know, some time ago, or something. It was one of the guys that worked there, and basically the reasoning for that is something along the lines of, when you're using the turbo button, you're pretty much getting your guy to top speed instantly. So if your guy's moving at top speed instantly, the defense has to compensate for that by block shedding quicker, because the thing is, in real life, you don't really get to top speed instantly, but in Madden, as soon as you hold that turbo button down, you're pretty much at top speed, even if you're just getting the ball. And that's like one of those things that there's kind of like that gray area in terms of when you're playing a video game. So if you're getting the top speed instantly, well, the defense has to compensate by that by being able to block shed quicker. So the way you avoid this is you don't actually hold the turbo button behind the line of scrimmage, because you shouldn't be trying to do that in most cases. Because even in the NFL, you know, unless there's just a huge hole, then yeah, you're trying to hit it hard, get right through it. You're trying to just burst through it. That's what you're supposed to do as a running back. But typically, the holes usually aren't that big. Typically, like, you know, you see the Le'Veon Bells of the world, and not to say that everybody runs the ball like that, but you still see kind of more and more as the league progresses. You know, running backs aren't always looking to just go, you know, top speed through the hole. They're trying to let their blocks develop. They're trying to maneuver through, and then once they hit daylight, that's when they try to break away. And that's how you have to play Madden. Even if you're doing an outside run, certain times on an outside run, you're going to want to hold turbo down right away, because you're just going to have the edge, and you might have a defender kind of on your hip, and you're just trying to outrun him. But typically, you want to lay off the turbo button as much as possible until you are completely in the clear, meaning there's not a defender within like 5 yards of you, you see nothing but green in front of you, and now it's just a sprint to try to outrun who's left on the defense. Otherwise, you just want to have your hand on that joystick, like I said, just with your left hand, and you don't want to be hitting that turbo button until it's the right time. And I guarantee you, this is probably one of the toughest habits to break. I even still, you know, have a bad habit of doing this every once in a while now, and when you break this habit, you notice how much easier it is to run the ball, how much less the block sheds actually happen in the run game. Tip number 4 is utilizing 2 tight end sets. Running formations, or just formations in general, I should say, that have 2 tight end sets typically are better running formations, because you're kind of getting that extra, you're getting an extra body on the offensive line. And tight ends, typically most tight ends have at least decent run blocking. Some are way better than others, but they have decent run blocking. When you have that extra body on the line, especially if you're going up against somebody that likes to use more of like the pass happy defensive coverages, stuff like dime and dollar, or like certain nickel formations, and you have that extra big body on the line, it actually really helps you in the run game, because you get another solid guy in the blocking game there for you. So you want to look at formations under center. You have certain single back formations that have 2 and even 3 tight ends sometimes, the jumbo type formations. Those are very good for running the ball. You have, you know, I-form, like I-form tight, that has a tight end on each side. Then you have stuff like I-form wing, which has 2 tight ends to the same side. So if you're running like a stretch, a dive, a power O, a toss kind of to that side of the field, you have really strong blocking. But also, you have some shotgun formations that have 2 tight ends. One of the best ones in the game is the gun ace formation, or the gun ace slot offset. You can find formations like these in the Patriots playbook, for example. They have a really good gun ace slot offset, and they have inside zone runs, and you have a tight end on each side of you. And it's one of those formations that has decent pass plays, but it's a lot harder to stop the run out of that shotgun formation as opposed to a regular shotgun formation, because you have that extra tight end on the line. And especially, like I said, when defenses come out and stuff like dollar and dime, you can really gash them in the run game. Now, another thing you can do is you can add tight ends into your offense. So if you're in a shotgun formation, maybe like you know, like a shotgun bunch tight end is very popular. You know, you can sub out one of those wide receivers for a tight end at the play call screen. So you could take the wide receiver out with your packages, and you could place another tight end there. And so now you've created a 2 tight end formation. So when you want to run the ball, you're going to have better run blocking. You'll be a little bit weaker in the pass game because obviously usually most of the time a receiver is going to be a better route runner and things like that. But you kind of create more balance with that, and you have a better run blocker out there if you like to run the ball a lot. So you can turn a lot of formations into 2 tight end sets by subbing them in. So you always want to pay attention to that, because those, like I said, are very easy to, it's very easy to run the ball with those types of formations. And the last tip, number 5, is you have to have a balanced attack. And this doesn't just mean multiple run plays, but it also means play action plays that play off of the run plays. So the best way to have a balanced attack in the run game, the best 1-2 punch is outside run, inside run. And in Madden 20, the best 2 runs for this are definitely a stretch run and a halfback dive or a halfback ISO, because the stretch is the best run in the game, and the dive is one of the most consistent runs in Madden every year. So you have a good run that goes to the outside, they have to worry about, protecting the edge, but you also have a run that can just go right up the gut for an easy 4 to 5 yards if they don't stack the box. And then when you mix in play actions that play off of those runs, so if you have a stretch play in your formation, there's very likely going to be a play action play that is faking the stretch. It has the same animation as if you were going to hand it off to the stretch and the running back goes to the outside, but then the QB pulls the ball back. Same with the halfback dive. There'll be a play action where they go direct, the quarterback turns directly behind him to hand it off to the halfback as if it's a dive, but then he pulls the ball back. And while you want to use multiple runs that they have to worry about, but the fact that the play action plays look exactly like the runs for a split second, that's what keeps the defense on their heels, and that's what allows you to pick up those big chunk plays, because once you've established that run game, they have to be on their heels. They have to overcompensate to stop it. And when you have multiple runs going, you have a run to the right, a run up the middle, a run to the left, they can't just really stack one way or the other. And then when they see you go for that play fake, they have to at least think that it could be a run, and that a lot of times causes them to bite, and you can go over the top for big yards. So make sure if you're wanting to run the ball, you have to find a formation that has all of these things. There's plenty of formations that have one really good run play, and you could throw that in your game plan every once in a while and just pull out that one run, but you can't really scheme around it, so it's not going to be that useful for you. You need to find that formation where you have all of the pieces there so that the defense has a lot to worry about, and that's what makes you harder to stop as a runner. So those are the 5 tips to mastering the run game. I hope you found this helpful. If you did, as always, you know the drill. Like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.